The spaceport bazaar was loud and dirty, full of strange smells and voices from every corner of the galaxy. Aliens walked past each other, ignoring the weak, trading goods, shouting deals, and stepping over the broken and hungry. No one looked twice at the small girl sitting on the cold metal floor. Her skin was pale gray, her clothes torn and too big for her thin frame. She was shaking, holding something tightly inside her coat, eyes wide and searching every face. Everyone passed her without care, like she was invisible. Eli was walking through the market, a bag of engine parts slung over his shoulder. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with a worn brown jacket and tired eyes. He had seen war, had seen peace, and now just wanted to fix his ship and leave. But then something stopped him. A tiny hand grabbed his sleeve. He turned quickly, ready to pull away. Then he saw her, a little alien girl, maybe 6 or 7 years old, her eyes full of fear and hope. She looked up at him and whispered, "Please. Just some milk for my baby sister." Eli froze. The crowd moved around them. But time felt slower. She opened her coat slightly, and he saw a much smaller baby, silent, limp, her eyes barely open. She looked more like a doll than a living being. "Where are your parents?" Eli asked, voice low. The girl shook her head, tears filling her eyes. "Gone. We ran. We hid. They didn't make it." Her voice cracked, and she held the baby tighter. A guard noticed them, frowning in this city, helping refugees. Like her was a crime. "Move along," the guard said to Eli, walking closer, hand on his shock baton. Eli didn't move. The little girl was trembling now, whispering, "Please don't let him take us. She just needs milk. Just milk." The baby gave a small, weak cough, like she didn't have the strength to cry. Eli looked at the guard, then back at the girl. His heart pounded, and he saw a flash of his own daughter's face. A memory burned into his soul. She had died years ago during the colony attacks. Too much smoke, not enough time. He had failed her. He couldn't fail this child too. Without thinking, Eli knelt down, scooped the baby into his arms and said, "Follow me." The girl blinked, unsure, but ran after him. The guard shouted, "Hey, stop." But Eli had already disappeared into the crowd. Moving fast, he ducked into a back alley, weaving through crates and old pipes. His ship wasn't far. He just had to reach it. They ran through the lower docks, dirty water sloshing under their boots. The baby in his arms felt cold. "Too cold," he whispered softly. "Hang on, little one. You're not dying today." He reached the side hatch of his ship, the Dust Whisperer, old but strong. Like him, he opened the door, pulled the girl inside, and locked it behind them. He placed the baby gently on the small med bed and turned to the girl. "What's your name?" "Nolly," she said, wiping her face. "And your sister?" "Luma," she whispered, looking down. "She hasn't eaten in 2 days." "We had nothing, just snow and dirt." Eli grabbed his emergency med kit, pulling out a heating blanket and nutrient injectors. This might help her stay warm, but she needs real food, real milk, he said. Nolly looked up. "Do you have some?" He opened his cooler, pulled out a sealed pack of synth milk, usually used for wounded crew or infants. It wasn't much, but it was something. He warmed it quickly and held the small bottle to Luma's mouth. She didn't suck at first, just stayed still. Then, slowly, her lips moved and a soft sound came from her throat. She was drinking. Nolly gasped, then covered her mouth with both hands, tears rolling down her face. "She's drinking." "She's really drinking," she whispered. Eli nodded, eyes misting. "Yeah. She's a fighter." The moment was short. A warning light blinked on his panel. Patrol units were scanning the docks. They were looking for someone Eli knew. It was him. "We're not safe here," he said, turning to Nolly. "They'll be coming for you. And now for me too." Nolly didn't speak, just held her sister and nodded. "I won't let them take you," he added, gripping the throttle. "I don't know what your story is, kid, but I'm not letting it end here." As the engines warmed up and the ship rose from the platform, Nolly looked at him with wide eyes, full of new hope. You're helping us? No one ever helps us." Eli looked back at her and smiled softly. Someone should have. The ship flew low across the broken skies, engines humming like a whisper in the dark. Eli pushed the controls hard, steering the dust whisperer through narrow air lanes, avoiding patrol routes. He checked the radar again. No red dots yet, but they wouldn't stay lucky for long. Behind him, Nolly sat quietly on the floor, holding baby Luma close to her chest. The baby had stopped crying, her tiny body warm again under the heating blanket. But her breathing was weak, and her eyes barely stayed open. Nolly's hands trembled as she rocked her sister, whispering lullabies in her own alien tongue. Eli looked back through the cockpit window. They needed a place to hide, not just for a few hours, but for days, maybe weeks. He couldn't take them to any hospital, not on this planet. Helping marked aliens like them could get him arrested, or worse, executed. He thought of someone, an old contact, someone who owed him a favor. "Hang on," Eli muttered, switching the ship's course. He sent a coded message through a private channel, then waited. After a few long seconds, a reply came. "Come to Sector 9, Dock 47. No questions." It wasn't much, but it was enough. He turned the ship and headed for the hidden zone beneath the city's old ruins. Dock 47 wasn't in any official records anymore. It had been destroyed during the last planetary war, but smugglers still used it, rebels too. They landed without lights, engines cooling with a hiss. Eli opened the back ramp and carried Luma while Nolly followed him into the dark. A small light blinked on the wall, a camera scanning them. The steel door creaked open, and a short woman in a grease-stained coat stepped out. Her cybernetic eye flickered as she stared at them. "Eli Trent," she said flatly. "Didn't expect to see you again." "Didn't expect to come back," Eli replied. "But I need help." He nodded to the bundle in his arms. "This baby's dying, and I can't take her to any med center." The woman looked at the child, then at Nolly. "You picked up fugitives," she whispered. "You're either brave or stupid, maybe both," Eli said. "But I'm not letting them die." She sighed and opened the door wider. "Get in before I change my mind." Inside was a hidden bunker, old war tech, patched up walls, and humming generators. Eli placed Luma gently on a medical bed while the woman, named Riva, examined her. "She's starving," Riva said, "and sick. Needs blood, nutrients, hydration, and constant warmth." "I brought some synth milk," Eli said. "But I don't have medical-grade supplies." Riva nodded, pulling open drawers and grabbing small vials. "I'll do what I can, but this isn't a hospital." Nolly stood nearby, silent, her hands clenched tight. She kept glancing at the walls, the machines, the shadows, ready to run if needed. Eli knelt beside her. "You're safe here," he said softly. "No one will hurt you." She looked at him with tired eyes. "You don't understand. They always find us." Eli didn't answer. He knew what she meant. The Empire had special trackers, bounty systems, and informants in every corner. Even a whisper about a marked child could bring death squads. Hours passed, and Riva worked, silently feeding tubes into Luma's small arm, setting up a heating unit. The baby's breathing grew steadier, and color slowly returned to her cheeks. "She's not out of danger," Riva said, "but she's stronger than she looks." Nolly sat down at last, shoulders sagging. "She was born in a prison camp," she whispered. "No doctors, just cold floors and fear." She looked at Eli. "Our parents tried to escape. We got out. They didn't." Eli sat beside her, resting his elbows on his knees. He didn't speak, just listened. Sometimes silence was better than any words. I carried her all the way through the wastelands, Nolly continued, voice shaking. We hid in garbage, ran from dogs, begged for food, people spit on us. Or tried to take her. She looked down, tears slipping down her cheeks. I thought she'd die. But I kept walking. Eli nodded slowly. You did more than most adults would. He meant it. She wasn't just a child. She was a fighter. Suddenly, an alarm beeped from the corner of the bunker. Reva rushed over, tapping the console. Her face turned pale. They're scanning this sector, she said. Empire patrols. They're looking for heat signatures. Eli stood up fast. We need to hide them. No, Reva said, shaking her head. We need to move. Now, Eli looked at Luma, hooked up to the machines, still too weak to be carried far. He clenched his fists, then looked at Nolly. I promised I'd keep you safe, he said, and I don't break promises. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small hidden chip, an old military contact code. He stared at it for a moment, then activated it. A screen flickered. On, and a gruff voice answered, Eli. You better be calling me for something important. I need your help, Eli said. I've got 2 lives here, and the Empire's coming. There was silence, then a sigh. Send me your coordinates, and pray I still care enough to do the right thing. The bunker was quiet, except for the soft hum of machines and the baby's slow breathing. Eli sat near Luma's bed, watching the rise and fall of her tiny chest. Every few minutes, he checked the vitals. Not because he had to, but because he was afraid they might stop. He had seen people die before, too many, but this little one. She felt different. Behind him, Nolly sat on the floor with her back against the wall, arms wrapped around her knees. She hadn't spoken much since the alert. She just stared ahead, eyes wide but distant, like she was trapped inside her memories. Eli stood up, grabbed 2 metal cups from the storage box, and poured warm broth from the emergency heater. He handed one to her and sat down beside her on the floor. Here, he said gently. Drink. You need it? Nolly took it without looking. Up, hands shaking, she sipped slowly, then whispered, Why are you helping us? Eli leaned back, eyes on the rusted ceiling. He was quiet for a long moment, then he said, Because I've failed once before. Nolly looked at him, confused. Eli's voice was rough. Tired. I had a daughter, he said. Her name was Mara, smart, always asking questions. She would have liked you. He paused. The memory thick in his throat. She died in the colony bombings. I wasn't there when it happened. Nolly stared, not sure what to say. I got there too late. Eli continued. I held her hand. But she was already gone, his hands clenched around the cup. I promised I'd never let anyone else die if I could help it. Not if I had the strength to stop it. Silence hung in the air like smoke. Then Nolly whispered, I had a brother. Eli turned to her slowly. She took a deep breath, as if pulling the words from deep inside her. He was older, stronger. He carried me when I was too tired. He told me stories when I was scared. Her voice broke, and she wiped her face quickly. But one day, he didn't come back, he went. To find food, said he'd be gone for just an hour. She hugged her knees tighter. I waited. 1 hour, then 2, then the whole night. Her lips trembled. The next morning, I found him. They'd thrown his body in the street. Her voice went hollow. No one cared. Eli didn't speak. He couldn't. He just listened, as her pain spilled into the room like a quiet storm. My parents were taken by soldiers. I still remember. The sounds, the screaming, her head sank. I covered Luma's ears. She was still in my mother's arms when they pulled them apart. Eli closed his eyes. So much pain, packed into such a small body she should have been laughing with. Friends, not running through ruins and holding a baby. I carried her across 3 sectors, Nolly said, stole food. Drank rainwater, hid in sewer pipes. She looked at Eli, her voice fierce now. I swore I'd keep her alive, even if I die, she will live. Eli looked into her eyes. There was no weakness there, only fire. You're brave, he said softly. And you're not alone anymore. She looked away, blinking fast. I still don't understand you, she whispered. Most humans. They ignore us, some spit on us, but you. You fight for us. Eli thought for a moment, then said, because I see myself in you. He nodded at Luma. Sleeping under the heat lamp, and I see my daughter in her, before Nolly could reply. The door opened, and Riva stepped in. We've got a problem, she said quickly. Empire scouts are moving through nearby tunnels. They've locked the area, all exits blocked. Eli stood fast. How long until they find us? Maybe? 2 hours, maybe less, Riva answered. They've got sniffers and drones. Nolly stood too, her voice tight. Can we run? Not with the baby, Riva said. She's stable, but she's still too weak. She needs more time. Eli turned and stared at the old steel door. His mind raced, options flashing and failing one after another. Then the COM panel crackled. A deep voice came through. Trent, this is Commander Huxley. I got your message. Tell me what you need. Eli grabbed the mic. We're locked in a bunker with 2 refugee children. Empire's closing in. There was a pause, then a calm. Reply, coordinates received. I'm sending a dropship with cover fire. Nolly blinked, surprised. You called in the military. Just one man, Eli said, but he flies with fire. Riva laughed, even in the tension. You really are insane, Trent. Eli smiled slightly. Sometimes that's the only way to survive. He turned to Nolly. Get ready, when the time comes. We run and we don't stop. Nolly held Luma tighter, for the first time in days. She didn't feel completely hopeless. Maybe, just maybe. They had a chance. The bunker shook as a distant blast echoed through the underground tunnels. Dust fell from the cracked ceiling, and Riva's monitors blinked with warnings. Your friend doesn't knock softly, she muttered, fingers flying. Across the keyboard, Eli stood by the hatch, rifle slung across his back, eyes sharp and ready. Nolly stayed close, holding Luma in a sling strapped to her chest, her arms tight around the tiny baby. Luma had opened her eyes for a few seconds that morning and even tried to coo. It wasn't much, but it gave them hope. We move in 2 minutes, Eli said. Watching the security camera feed outside the bunker, a heavy dropship hovered, firing suppression shots at the advancing Empire scouts. The ship's engines lit up the tunnel in blinding orange, but the enemy kept coming. They're not giving up. Riva said, this isn't just about the kids. They want to make an example. They won't get that chance, Eli replied, voice cold. He turned to Nolly. You remember the path? She nodded, her face serious, through the west duct, up the ladder. Then run toward the lights. Good girl, he said. You lead, I'll cover. Riva tossed him a small med pack and a vial. Here, real milk concentrate and immuno boost. For the baby, if you don't use it in time, she relapse. Nolly caught the vial. Clutching it like treasure, she didn't need to be told how rare it was. People had killed for less. The lights flickered and sirens blared. Time's up. Riva shouted, go now. Eli kicked open the back hatch, and they ran. Gunfire cracked behind them. Smoke filled the tunnel, and shadows danced across the walls. Nolly didn't stop, even with the baby clutched to her, even when her legs burned from running. She followed the glowing markers Eli had shown her the night before. Eli moved behind her, shooting carefully, taking down 2 soldiers who tried to flank. He didn't hesitate, his body moved on instinct, his focus only on keeping them safe. They reached the ladder, and Nolly scrambled up first. Her hand slipped once, but she didn't fall. She kept whispering to Luma, "Just a little more. Just a little more." At the top, daylight poured in through broken metal grates. They burst out into an open yard filled with debris, wrecked machines, crates, and broken ships. The dropship hovered nearby. Back ramp open, engines screaming. A soldier stood at the door, waving them in. "Come on, move." Nolly ran toward it, legs nearly giving out. Behind her, Eli fired one last round and turned to sprint, but just as they reached the ramp, a plasma blast hit the ground beside them. Nolly screamed as the shockwave knocked her forward. She hit the ramp hard, shielding Luma with her body. Eli grabbed her arm and pulled them the rest of the way in. The soldier slammed the button, and the ramp closed with a hiss. "Go!" Eli yelled, and the dropship lifted into the sky, leaving fire and chaos behind, inside the ship. Medics rushed forward, checking Nolly and the baby. Luma was pale, sweating again. One medic frowned. "She's relapsing." "We need that vial." Nolly handed it over, and they quickly administered the boost. Luma whimpered once, then breathed easier. "She's stabilizing," the medic said. "But she's not safe yet." Nolly let out a deep breath and leaned against the wall. Eyes closed. She had never felt this tired before, not even when she had gone for days without food. Eli sat beside her, wiping dust and blood from his face. "You did good, kid," he said. "You didn't drop her." Even when the ground exploded, Nolly gave a small smile. "She's all I have," she whispered. Then, after a moment, she added, "And now, I guess I have you too." Eli looked away, hiding the emotion in his eyes. He wasn't used to hearing words like that, not since Mara. But deep down, it warmed something inside him. The ship flew across the city's skies, breaking atmosphere. As it climbed, Commander Huxley's voice came over the intercom. "Trent, destination secured. We're taking them to Haven 9. It's off-grid, protected, no Empire spies." Eli nodded. "Thanks, Commander. You owe me a drink," Huxley replied, then clicked off. Riva's voice buzzed through a private comm. "You made it." "Barely," Eli said. "Thanks for the help." "Don't thank me yet," Riva replied. "Word is out. There's a price on the girl's head now, and the baby." Eli's face hardened. "Let them come. They'll have to get through me." First, Nolly didn't say anything. She just looked at her baby sister. Finally sleeping peacefully for the first time in days. The milk and medicine had worked, but the enemies? They weren't finished yet. For now, they had escaped. But Nolly knew better than to believe they were safe. Not yet. Not while the Empire still hunted the weak. She held Luma closer and whispered, "We'll survive this too, I promise, Eli." Sat beside her in silence. He believed her, because when this little girl made a promise, she meant it. The dropship hovered above the clouds before diving into a thick blanket of fog. Below, the hidden planet known as Haven waited, quiet and untouched. The world was green, peaceful, and protected by old rebel tech, invisible to Empire scans. Eli looked out the window as the trees passed beneath them. For the first time in days, he allowed himself to breathe without fear. They had made it out alive, but he knew peace wouldn't last. Across the ship, Nolly sat on a small bench. Baby, Luma, in her arms. The infant was finally sleeping, warm and calm. Nolly watched every breath like it was magic. A medic approached, smiling. "She's strong. Most babies wouldn't have survived what she's been through." Nolly nodded proudly. "She's a fighter." Just like Mama, the ship landed near a quiet village surrounded by tall mountains and dense forest. Small houses were built into the hillsides. And other refugees walked the paths. Some looked human, others alien. But no one stared or judged. Here, everyone had escaped something. They were given a room in a quiet corner, just one bed and a heater. But it felt like a palace to Nolly. Soft blankets, clean water, and no sounds of boots marching or guns firing. Eli stood at the door while Nolly laid Luma down to sleep. The baby's chest rose and fell slowly, a tiny smile on her lips. Eli's eyes widened. Did she just smile? Nolly turned, grinning. She did. That's her first one. Eli walked closer, kneeling by the bed. He gently touched the baby's hand. She didn't pull away. Instead, her fingers curled around one of his. She's safe now, he said softly. I promised to keep it that way, but promises were hard to keep, especially when the galaxy was hunting you. Later that night, while Nolly slept, curled beside her sister, Eli stepped outside. He needed air and answers. He contacted Riva through his old comm unit. She answered with a serious look. You need to see this, she said, and shared her screen. A bounty alert flashed a public notice from the Empire. Wanted. One female child of the Banzalari species. Age approximately 6 to 8. Last seen in outer colonies. Suspected to be carrying high-value genetic code, accompanied by human male, name unknown. Reward, 300,000 credits, alive only. Eli cursed under his breath. There. Not just after her for being a refugee, he muttered. There's something else. They think she's important, Riva said. Very important. Eli rubbed his forehead. The girl was smart, brave, and a survivor. But why would the Empire want her alive? Unless she had something they needed. He walked back into the room and stared at the sleeping children. There were questions to ask, but not tonight. They deserved at least one night of peace, but peace didn't last. The next morning, Nolly was outside, picking fruit with other refugee children. Luma rested in a small sling wrapped around her chest, softly snoring. She smiled as a kind old alien woman handed her a red apple-like fruit. Thank you, she said politely. It felt like a dream, but... In the shadows, someone watched, a tall figure in a brown cloak with a long rifle strapped to his back. His helmet blinked red as it scanned the girl from a distance. Target confirmed. He tapped his wrist, sending a signal to his ship hidden above orbit. Target found, he whispered, awaiting pickup back in the village center. Eli was talking with the head caretaker, arranging a longer stay. Then his comm buzzed a warning from the defense grid. Unidentified life form breaching perimeter. He bolted toward the orchard. Heart racing, from the tree line, he spotted the cloaked figure walking toward Nolly, slow and silent, his hand reaching for a tranquilizer dart. Eli didn't think. He raised his old blaster and fired a warning shot. The beam struck the ground just inches from the bounty hunter's feet. Step away from her, Eli shouted. Nolly turned sharply, recognizing the man in the cloak. It was the same one she had seen near the camps, the one who dragged her friend away. She screamed, holding Luma close, running toward Eli. The hunter lunged to grab her, but Eli was already moving. He tackled the man to the ground, fists flying. The hunter fought back, strong and fast, but Eli fought with fury, not for money, but for something far more powerful. Family. After a hard punch, the hunter fell unconscious. Eli stood over him. Breathing hard, Nolly ran to him. Shaking, I saw him before. He took children from the camps. Eli stared down at the man. This wasn't a random bounty hunter. This was a trained tracker. He looked toward the sky. Knowing more would come, this was just the beginning. He picked up the hunter's device and crushed it under his boot. No one's taking you, Nolly, he said firmly. Not while I breathe. She didn't answer. She just hugged him. Tight. And for the first time, Eli hugged back. The sky above Havenine was calm. But inside Eli's mind, a storm was building. The bounty hunter's attack wasn't just a warning. It was proof. The Empire didn't want the world to forget the Zellar. They wanted to erase them completely. In the quiet room, Luma slept peacefully beside a heater, her breathing soft. Her tiny fingers curled around the edge of a blanket. Nolly sat near her, wrapping bandages around a small scrape she got while running. Her eyes were different now, sharper, stronger. Eli entered the room holding a small device. "We found something on the hunter," he said. "A list encrypted, but my contact." Broke through. Nolly looked up, listening. "There are names," Eli continued. "Children like you, from other camps, captured, taken somewhere secret." Nolly's face tightened. "They're still alive." "Some of them, maybe," Eli replied. "But we can't save them alone." She stood up, slowly. "Then we don't stay silent." Eli blinked, surprised. "What do you mean?" Ali stepped forward, eyes steady. "We tell everyone. We show them what the Empire is doing. The galaxy doesn't help us because they don't know. But if they see us, see Luma, hear the truth, maybe they will care." Eli looked at her, then nodded. "There's one way to do that," he said. "There's an old rebel broadcast station deep in the mountains. Buried, but still working." He opened a map and pointed to a distant range. "It's not on any grid, and it can reach every system before the Empire can shut it down." "Then let's go," Nolly said, already packing Luma's bag. No more hiding. It took them 2 days to reach the site. They traveled by night, hiding under trees. Moving through old rebel tunnels, the mountains loomed high, and the wind was cold. But Nolly never complained. And Luma slept softly against her chest. When they finally found the bunker entrance, it was buried under vines and stone. Eli used a code to open the rusted door, and they stepped into the shadows. Inside, the old tech still hummed. Dust covered the panels, but the power was still flowing. Eli wiped the screen and booted up the system. Lights flickered on, one by one. "Ready," he said, handing Nolly a headset. She sat down in front of the camera, heart pounding. I don't know what to say," she whispered. Eli crouched beside her. "Say what's in your heart, nothing more, nothing less." She took a deep breath. The camera light turned red. They were live. "My name is Nolly," she said slowly. "I am a Zalari child." She paused, her voice trembling. "The Empire took my home, my family, my friends." Her eyes filled with tears. "They called us nothing, treated us like trash." She held up Luma in her arms, letting the camera see her tiny face. "This is my sister, Luma. She almost died for being born different." The signal was going out across satellites, colonies, and stations. Every screen began to flicker with her image. "If you see this," Nolly continued, "know that we are still here. The Empire lies to you. They say we're dangerous, but all we want is to live." She leaned closer. "You can help us, even if it's just sharing this message." The screen faded to black, and the signal ended. Eli slowly removed the headset from her. "You were perfect," he said. "They'll hear you." Just then, the alarm beeped, not from the Empire, but from incoming messages. Dozens of responses began flooding in from rebel groups, hidden planets, even humans in government. A message flashed on screen. "Help is coming. Keep the child safe. The truth is out now." Nolly smiled for the first time in days. A real smile. "I didn't think they'd listen," she whispered. "They listened because you spoke," Eli said, resting a hand on her shoulder. But outside the bunker, far in the sky, something else had seen the signal. An Empire war drone hovered above the mountain. Silent and deadly. It had tracked the broadcast, and now it sent a new signal back to base. "Target located. Execute purge order." Back inside, Eli's comm unit buzzed. "A warning from Riva, Eli. You need to move now." They saw the signal. "Strike ship inbound." Eli stood fast, grabbing their packs. "Let's go, now." Nolly didn't hesitate. She scooped up Luma, wrapped her tight, and followed Eli into the cold night. They ran through the trees as the first blast hit the mountain behind them. Flames shot into the sky. But they didn't stop. Not now, not after everything. As they ran, more messages came through Eli's device, thousands of people, saying the same thing: we saw her, we believe her, we are with her. The mountain behind them burned like a torch in the night. Ash drifted down like snow, and the sky turned red from fire. Eli held his rifle in one hand and guided Nolly with the other. She held Luma tight against her chest, running even though her legs shook with every step. They didn't stop, not even to rest. The Empire had found them, and now they would never stop chasing. Unless someone stopped them first, after hours of running through the woods. They reached a valley filled with broken metal, an old battlefield from the rebellion days. Crushed droids, rusted tanks, and shattered ships lay scattered across the dirt. Smoke rose from cracks in the earth, and broken flags fluttered in. The wind, Eli looked around and found a place to hide the shell of an old troop transport. Half buried in the ground, they crawled inside. And for a moment, the world outside grew quiet. Nolly sat against the wall, holding Luma, who had fallen asleep again. "She's tired," Nolly whispered. "She keeps fighting, but she's tired." Eli nodded, checking the blaster's energy cell. "We're not done yet," he said, "but we're close." Just then, his communicator buzzed. Riva's voice came through, crackling and urgent. "Eli, are you alive?" "Barely," he answered. "We're in an old battlefield zone." "Hiding. You need to stay there," she said quickly. "And listen, the whole galaxy saw the broadcast. There's been a massive response. Protests, donations, even governments questioning the Empire's actions." Eli raised his brows, surprised. "They actually care?" "More than care," Riva said. "They're angry, and some are on their way." The signal cut off suddenly, replaced by static. Then a new voice broke through. Deep and cruel, human Eli Trent. The voice growled, "This is Commander Varith of the Empire. You are ordered to surrender the Zalari child and the infant at once. You have 5 minutes." Eli stood slowly, eyes cold. "They found us," he said quietly, "outside." The sound of engines filled the air. Dropships circled above, and Empire troops began landing in the valley. Their boots hit the ground like thunder, forming a wall of armored bodies. Nolly looked out from the transport, fear filling her face. "There's too many," she said, voice shaking. Eli looked at her, then at Luma, and finally, he smiled. "We're not alone," he said. From the far side of the valley, new ships appeared. They were sleek, fast, and not painted in Empire colors. These were rebel crafts, small groups from a dozen different systems. One by one, they landed behind Eli and Nolly's hiding spot. People began stepping out. Humans, aliens, ex-soldiers, doctors, even farmers. All of them armed. All of them angry. A loudspeaker turned on, and a strong voice echoed across the field. "This child will not be taken," it said. "We've seen enough," Commander Varith shouted back. "You stand against the law of the Empire." "No," the voice replied. "We stand against injustice." A standoff followed, deadly and silent. The wind blew across the battlefield, kicking dust into the air. Then Luma cried, a soft, hungry sound. It cut through the silence like a bell. Eli looked down at her, tears in his eyes. She doesn't even know why they want to kill her. He whispered. Nolly stood beside him. Trembling, she stepped forward out of the broken transport. Holding Luma in both arms, "I am the girl from the broadcast," she shouted across the valley. "I am not dangerous. I am not evil," she raised her chin. "I'm just a big sister trying to keep her baby sister alive." The rebels behind her raised their weapons, standing tall, one by one. Civilians began streaming in from the nearby woods, people who had seen the signal and followed it. Old men, young women, even children stood side by side, forming a living wall between Nolly and the Empire. Commander Varith hesitated. His troops looked unsure. Shifting in place, one soldier lowered his weapon, then another. Eli stepped beside Nolly and placed a hand on her shoulder. "You changed everything," he said softly, suddenly. Vareth's ship turned away, retreating. Other ships followed, one by one, until the sky was clear. Cheers erupted across the field, but Nolly didn't cheer. She looked at her sister, who was looking up with wide eyes and smiling. The baby didn't understand what had happened, but she was alive and free. The next few days were a blur. News spread across systems. And Nolly became a symbol, not of war, but of truth. Eli stayed by her side, always ready, always watching, but for now. The guns were silent. One evening, under a blue sky and soft sunset, Nolly sat beside Eli near a quiet stream. Luma was sleeping in a basket made of soft leaves and cloth. She looked up at him, then asked quietly, "Do you think I can stop running now?" Eli looked at her and smiled. "Yes," he said. "You're not just surviving anymore, you're living." The end.